3 concurrent viewers. Why is it message retracted? Go live. Okay. It says I'm live. It says that's happening. Is it working now? So this is... Oh, okay. So it says I'm live. I see the little minutes ticking in the top. That's great. Still says waiter. Oh, wait, never mind. Yes! Yes! Yes, excellent. Ah, all right, Alexandra, that is... Ah, man. Just made my morning a little bit better. It's working. Fantastic. Awesome. There is a delay. I just sent a link to the entire class, so hopefully we'll get more people coming in at the moment. All right. So that should be okay. My message dated at this time. Okay, for some reason it's not sending it to the listserv. Man, when one thing works, then the others don't. All right, so what I'm doing as I'm looking off screen is just looking at my email, because when I send things to the listserv, it takes UF a few seconds to process it, usually a few seconds. Apparently today it's multiple seconds, and it's supposed to take a little bit of time to send it back to me and then say, hey, we just want to make sure this is actually you sending it, which is kind of nice. It's to prevent spoofing and other things like that. But what's happening here is that it's actually just like this massive funnel, this massive bottleneck. And it's apparently it didn't even send it out. Like I'm just very confused. So yeah, okay, that's it's saying that I'm not even it's saying I didn't even send the email earlier, which is funny because I certainly did. Take 2 for the 3rd time, because if it's not one thing, it's another. Alright, so 2 concurrent viewers. I'll send a message in the group me just to search you on YouTube, because that's how I found it. Oh, okay. Fantastic. That's nice. Oh, wait. Approve the message. Excellent. Yes. Great. Yes. Great. Please do that. The email also worked. Eventually. So, thank you, Alexandra, for helping me iron out the kinks. I sincerely appreciate it. Okay. So, just, this is all just a headache. So I guess I'm just gonna chill here. I'm just gonna relax and wait until... Oh, we're at 3 concurrent viewers now. Again, considering that there's a 20-second delay. At least I think it's 20 seconds. What does OBS say? 10 seconds. Actually, that's not bad. Kevin, excellent. Glad it works. 6 viewers. All right, so we're gonna give everybody a little bit of time to come in. I'm gonna do my best to monitor the chat, not so much type in the chat anymore, because I'm glad it works. I'm glad that we got this figured out. So what it looks like we're going to do from now on is, as opposed to me scheduling it, because the issue was last time I had scheduled the video to go off at regular class time, and apparently YouTube didn't like that. YouTube was like, okay, fine, whatever. We'll just keep scheduling it 5 minutes into the future, 10 minutes into the future, ad infinitum. So it was just... You're never going to watch the video, it basically, because it kept saying it's going to keep being scheduled, but not actually ever making it go live. So I'm glad it's working now. So we're going to give it a little bit of time. Do we get to see the new baby? I thought you guys would never ask. So maybe that's what we do, actually. Maybe that's what we do to pass the time. So actually, hold on. Let me just go back to my face. Switch that over. Yeah. So I appreciate you guys. And I appreciate the all the congratulations. Am I missing the baby? Oh, Kyle. Yeah. Unfortunately, you are missing. You are missing the baby. You are missing the baby. Um. So. Yeah. I appreciate you guys' patience with all of this. So it'll run smoother in the future because in the future I now know not to try to schedule the dang thing, to just go live and stuff like that. So to kind of get a sense of the delay for one, and just kind of see what kind of thing I'm working with here. Uh, Congratulations. Yeah. Thank you. So just kind of get a sense of the delay. How many of you guys are still in Gainesville, or did all of you guys end up going home, or is Gainesville home for you? Just pop that into the chat so I can get a sense. Kyle, I see you. Hey, thank you. Again, so there's a bit of a delay. I have no idea how long that delay is actually operating. My streaming software says 10 seconds. YouTube seems to be more like 20. Rosalina feels loved. Stephanie Yu, for those of you who are wondering, is my wife. That is, my wife is in the chat. So now here's the here's the thing, right? So I talk about you guys all the time. My wife loves when I come home and tell stories about the class. But now she's basically, like, you guys know those chain stories on Tumblr where, like, it all ends with, like, you know, they all stood up and applauded them. Like, they're all obviously fake. She's going to realize that all my stories about my teaching is all fake now. She's gonna see just how bad of a teacher I actually am. So, yeah. So wife is in the chat, kind of making sure that there aren't any additional technical issues. Home, still in Gainesville. Holy crap, that is like several minutes. That is like a minute and a half. Gainesville for now. Have to stay in Gainesville because of my job. Still in Gainesville. Home, still in Gainesville. Staying at school. Okay. Wherever you guys are, just please be safe. Be conscious of who you're meeting with. Be conscious of, like, how many strangers that these individuals that you're meeting with are meeting with as well. Because as I mentioned in the email, it's pretty contagious, right? And you can pass it without even knowing it. And I think, personally for me, remembering back to H1N1 and swine flu and other things like that, I think that is so many people back. I might go home soon, but Broward is really infected. Yeah, no, Broward especially. If I remember correctly, they put in the National Guard into Broward. So yeah, Kevin, just be safe. Everybody, please just be safe. That is my number one concern for you guys right now. Is your guys' safety. So please be safe. All right. So I think we're hitting kind of a bit of a critical mass. 24 concurrent viewers, which is pretty good. It's about what I was kind of expecting. If people manage to get that email, manage to be able to come back into the chat, we'll go from there. So we're going to kind of move into the actual presentation for that. And we're going to actually talk about, that, still in Gainesville. I was going to go home. My sister is quarantining herself. Okay, so that's smart. Just, hold on. I'm going to move my face a second here. So video capture device. I'm going to move my face over. Okay. So that way you guys can actually see what we're talking about here in terms of this. So we're talking about political identity. That is the whole point of this. We are talking about political identity. That is the topic of today, because we were supposed to be talking about that obviously last week. Clearly we did not, because Wednesday was the baby, and so was Friday. Actually, as I was mentioning, it was 22 hours. We only just got released at 3:30 yesterday. So yeah, it was quite a bit. So quite a whole ordeal. So let's actually get into kind of like the more meat and potatoes of what we're doing here today. And so, as said, 5 times now, talking again, when I normally make YouTube videos, they're not live streamed. They're done with cuts and edits and other things like that. So sorry if this is a little bumpy and rough. We're gonna push on through this. We're going to stay calm and pull it along. Can I post the attendance link? Chandler, that's an excellent idea. I certainly can. I'm actually just going to type it in. Yeah, it would probably be smarter if I just did that. Actually, big brain here. I could just put it in the description. I could just put it in the description. Wednesday, I'm putting it in the description. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and just post it into the chat. You can tell that this caught everybody by surprise. Yeah, that is possible. Yeah, is that possible? I thought you were... Okay. Yeah, that is definitely possible. I'm posting it into the chat right now. Actually... yeah, so let's just get that posted. PRLZ BKQBXE GK 4KA 3A. Alright, attendance working? Try this. I typed it up. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Ria. That is awesome. Still in Gainesville for now. Heading out in the next couple of hours, though. Okay, Brendan, please be safe. Again, with everybody, just please be safe. Please be conscious. So, typed it up. Should be in there. Hopefully that link works. Probably could just test it myself. It does. It does work. Excellent. Cool. Groovy. Okay. So, multiple false starts. Let's go ahead and talk about identity. So, identities recap. We are talking about political identities in the sense of like any other kind of identity. So let's talk about identities themselves, because it's been a hot minute, right? Because we talked about political identification last week. We talked about identities. What was that? There was spring break, then there was the exam week, and then there was the week before that. So okay, yeah, there's definitely like a 1 minute delay. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So I don't know. I'm gonna see if I can optimize this. Maybe plug it in directly to the Ethernet on Wednesday if I have the chance to try to do that. I'm gonna talk to my internet provider, see if there's a chance that I can get it boosted. So we'll see. We'll see how we can make this smoother. So yeah, so like almost a month ago at this point, we talked about identities, and I mentioned that political identities obviously are an important part of political behavior, and that it actually is becoming an identity in and of itself. It is becoming a salient identity, similar to how race is one, similar to how religion is one, similar to sex and other things like that. So we're going to let's take a brief second to talk about again what identities are. So like to talk about again. Make sure I have the right hotkey. Oh, that is the wrong hotkey. 2, 1. There it is. This is what happens when you try to get fancy and you try to program OBS to. This is what happens when you try to program OBS to be all fancy and be able to have nice transitions and all those other things. Okay, so identities, right, are things that we are born into. They are general constructs that are socially made that we are born into, and they have the demarcations of like what it means to be in this group, what it means to be in that group. These can be physical characteristics. These can be there's 1.5 million different ways that identities form, right? And one of the important things is that they help make the world. They help us understand the world. They help us make sense of who we are and the world itself. It doesn't take a whole lot, right, to make identities or to make them consequential. And I think that's kind of really, really interesting when we're talking about political identities, because there's, the whole famous bit about how George Washington and the Founding Fathers did not want political parties. So it's almost like bad, it's weird that we've now kind of created this super salient identity when we've historically supposedly been trying to avoid it. So it doesn't take a lot to make identities or to make them consequential, and we have had a process where we have come into political identities being an important thing. So let's talk about the difference between identification and identities, because last week, as I mentioned before, the different ways that we've kind of conceptualized political identification over the past, right, where you had, whether it was an epiphenomenal thing dealing with the kind of the flow and the movement of history. We talked about whether or not it was... Oh, wrong one again. I'm going to have to get used to these hotkeys. We talked about whether it was part and parcel of the flow and movement of history. We talked about whether or not it was kind of like due to the social connections or things like that. And we also talked about retrospective theories of identification and things like that. And this was also covered a little bit in your guys' reading this time. So, sorry, just the making sure that no one was talking in the chat real quick. So let's talk about real quick what is the difference between identification and identities. So I think it could probably be best explained if we think about the kind of more social one that is that was mentioned last week. And what that was, remember, is that we have these different groups that we kind of belong to, that they kind of help us have these cross pressures and other things like that. And those kind of help us, those guide us to a particular party that we would then identify with. It was always, again, a part of like, oh, I'm kind of have a psychological affinity towards that. I kind of like feel a little bit of attachment in that direction. But it's identify closest with, right? It was never really in the sense of actually identifying as, or like seeing it as identity, right? So that became a huge shift, both in terms of how we study political identities, but also in terms of just the fact that that's evolved into being a super salient identity. So identification is kind of like both the previous paradigm in terms of how we understood it in political behavior, but also in terms of just how it was almost felt, right? Almost in terms of like how it was actually lived. It's difficult because for a lot of people in at our age and even younger, this is the only reality that they've known, right? In terms of polarization and things like that. It's hard to remember that there was once a time where it didn't feel like everyone was at each other's throats. But there was, and it really was not all that long ago. So it's really the difference is between identifying with, kind of having that resonance with a general label, almost like a brand again. And Mason talks about that a little bit in her comment about the ADA, or the ACA rather, about branding. It's almost like a resonance with a brand versus actually being part of this group. But nowadays we are actually part of that group. So how did politics become an identity? Because again, we talked about how there are multiple processes. We talked about how there are different ways that identities can form, anywhere between like kind of, you have historical trajectories, and then you have just anything from a coin flip. And political party identity is more like the longer one than the coin flips, obviously. So let's talk about the different stories of how this kind of came to be. The first one should seem a little familiar because we kind of talked about this a little bit last time when we talked about identification and the different party eras, and we talked about the different the different party eras. We talked about the realignments, especially whether or not there was one in the 1960s after the Civil Rights Bill. So the first story, right, is one about issue polarization. The story is like, we have civil rights as an issue in the United States, and then you have the Democratic Party pushing pro-civil rights, or you have Johnson going with the northern faction of the Democratic Party, and that causing this huge split, and ultimately this kind of longer, gradual, secular realignment in terms of... Sorry, I thought I heard Rosalina. Like, hold on. Okay, no. We're good. In terms of this longer secular realignment for when people go, instead of voting for the president in the South, the Southern Democrats would be voting Republican for president, things like that, starting after that. So you had this kind of gradual realignment towards party identification towards there. So that story is basically like there was this issue, and this issue is pretty important in the overall American story, and that issue is race and civil rights. And because of where the Democratic Party went on that, it ultimately caused a schism. It ultimately caused a difference. And that difference people ended up kind of vying for and sorting into and things like that. And we ultimately have this where we are today. And while that isn't wrong, right, it also isn't the full story. And that's kind of what Mason is talking about in her book, because the second story is slightly askance from that, right? It's a different kind of story. The second story is social polarization and social sorting. And what we mean by that is, remember we talked about neighborhoods as political identification, right? We talked about how some counties became far more Republican-leaning over time and other counties became far more Democratic-leaning over time. We talked about how people are sorting into these areas based off of considerations that aren't explicitly political, but that just so happen to become political. This is the process of just so happening to becoming political. I mean, probably a few too many INGs in there, but, you get the gist. I will say this, though. The best part about live streaming, and I hope that none of you guys who ever aspire to be educators have to deal with this sort of thing where you have to have such a massive turnaround in a very, very quick amount of time. But if there is a benefit to live streaming, you can always just pretend that all your very bad jokes just land perfectly. So that's a plus. So this is the process of that becoming, in that sense, right? This is the process of just so happening to be coming. And what this is a story of kind of a mixture of concerted elite action, recruiting groups into the fray, but also just kind of incidental overlap, right? And what this is that, you know, it's social groups that were, you know, recruited, like you can think of Reagan making explicit, in the Republican Party, making explicit overtures towards evangelical voters in the 1980s, continuing on into today. You know, making this push towards making religious values a core part of the party platform, even if it's not maybe necessarily explicitly. It often is, you know, in the kind of undercurrents. Excuse me. So it's, you know, it's a part of things like that. So it could be elite recruitment, right? But it also could be just kind of incidental sorting and things like, you know, talking about how it just so happens that people are talking about how Republicans happen to feel aligned more so, or more feel closer to Southerners, like a geographic locale, like a geographic identity. Again, it's not that geographic identity doesn't matter, because again, we talked about how geographic identities can be tied into different like honor cultures and things like that. But and we also talked about how, you know, in some locales, like in, you know, like in Canada, you're talking about like Quebec, and you're talking about you know, you're talking about other places when you're dealing with rebellion and you're dealing with attempts of secession. Geography can matter quite a lot, so it's not that it's an inconsequential label, but it's not really one that we get to really have as much say on. It almost seems like it should be trivial. But even things like as just geographic designation, like people feel closer towards a Southerner, like they identify more with the idea of Southern culture than not, and those things just sort of kind of come into a more gradual process, a more happenstance process, due to just like, you know, things that emerge in consumer culture, things that just kind of come out and come to be. So what the second story is to kind of wrap it all up in a pretty neat little bow, is that yes, issues are important, and what we're seeing is this division in issues, right? If you look back through the chapter, you can see those pretty charts that look at how much wider the distance between partisans have become on a whole host of important social issues, going back to like the 1970s, if you're looking at the American National Election Survey. But it's not because it's that change came after the social polarization, or very, very closely following it, right? It's that social groups started becoming more aligned with it, and more social groups started becoming more and more aligned with particular political parties, right? So again, evangelical voters became more and more aligned with this, and secular voters became more and more aligned with the Democratic Party. Voters who are more interested in pursuing civil rights for African Americans and LGBTQ individuals, right, or engaging in those things, became more and more aligned with the Democratic Party. And so you have these social stratifications emerging, right? And that's really, really important, because as we'll talk about kind of towards the end of today's lecture, on paper this is gonna sound funny, on paper there's really nothing wrong with polarization. Like, and on paper there's nothing wrong with the idea that you have two bifurcated parties, you know, over here and over here. In fact, it can actually be good for voters. It's what gets down into it is when you have animus, is when you have anger, and when you have social division. And political scientists have been talking about for a while now that it's okay to have distinction, right? It's a whole other matter to have division. So, and that division comes in through the alignment of social identities with these other factors. Okay. All right, so consequences of political identities, a lot. Okay, so also, just as a quick timeout, again, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, I came home yesterday probably about 3:30. The second I walked through the door, I had to go back out to the store after probably getting 6 hours of sleep over the last 72 hours. I am fortunate because I got 3 hours of sleep last night. It's wonderful, truly restful. And so as soon as I got home, I had to go to the store to get dog food. I had to also go to the store to buy food, you know, to make sure that my wife and I were actually fed. So by the time that this all came together, this all got done, and by the time that all the kinks got ironed out, which, as you could tell, like, still was happening as it was supposed to be live, the slides are wanting. Is a long way of saying the slides could be better. They could be more informative. They could be a little bit more planned. Rough first day. Let's all just kind of acknowledge that. Wednesday should be better. Friday should be better. Streams in the future should be better. Ideally, right, hopefully, optimally, and optimistically, this will be done and over by the 30th of March. There's a very strong chance that optimism won't be the case. So for the rest of the semester, possibly, we will, this will get smoother. The slides will be back at their regular. Can we see dude? Can we see dude? Fun fact, I was actually considering setting up a separate like pet cam. Those of you who watch, I want to see Doggo. Okay. Next time there'll be Doggo. There'll be Doggo, and then I don't know. Maybe my father-in-law calls her Cato. Maybe there'll be Cato as well. Please. Next stream. Maybe this is how I encourage future participation. Next stream there'll be a picture of the dog. Okay. Next stream there will be dude. So yeah, this will get all ironed out. So again, I really just appreciate you guys' patience. This is a difficult transition for a lot of us to make. Doggo. I know, guys. I know there will be Doggo. I promise. Doggo on Wednesday. Okay. I'm getting a lot of assent in the chat for Doggo again. Wednesday. Pinky promise. Doggo on Wednesday. Pup can please. I have lost control of the chat to the dog. You guys haven't even seen yet. He's really cute. Pup cam. Yeah, again, so for those of you who watch streamers, sometimes they have pet cams, right? Sometimes people who play video games professionally for like live stream video games, they'll have little like, kind of like how I have on the upper, wherever I am. It's orientations are weird. Where, they'll have separate little cameras for where the pet is. Live action Doggo peas, not just pick up Doggo. How many likes download to see Doggo? I don't know, man. There are how many viewers? 22? 30 likes. 30 likes to get a live stream of the dog. So talk to I don't know, man. Talk to the rest of the class to get on that. Yeah, so people will actually have like animals and things like that. So, man, we are really glad that I'm ever deciding with this YouTube. Yes, that way I can actually see who's chatting and participating. I can mentally attribute your guys' questions to you, and it's all really important. So yes, yeah, please be sure to in the future log in with your own username or create one for yourself if you don't already have a Gmail. Anyways, totally lost track here. Not that that's really a surprise for me, obviously. Anyways, let's get back on the track. So last immediate track that we left was me just being appreciative, and I am very appreciative. Thank you for you guys' patience. So this will get ironed out, and again, really appreciate it. Previous track before that, let's talk about the consequences of 30 likes. Is that a challenge? Yes. It absolutely is a challenge. Get 30 likes off of 22 concurrent viewers. Actually, no, because you guys could just come in and spam with other accounts. Yeah, Chandler just said that. I think we can't make up more accounts. 300. We will. All right. Yeah. I need 300 likes. 300 likes, and I don't know. I don't think I can actually, realistically, I already have a pretty bad stream quality as it is, right? As you can tell from the minute-long delay. I don't think I could actually make a Doggo cam unless I got the dog to come behind me. But for, I don't know, 300 likes, I will... 300 likes, I'll go out and buy a new frickin' system and get Doggo a live stream, okay? But for the 11 likes, there are 11 likes on the damn video now. I applaud you guys' passion. I applaud you guys' commitment. Okay. Should probably actually get back to teaching, right? That should be a thing that we do. So let's get on back to that. Let's talk about the consequences of political identities. So for one, there's lots and lots of biases. Different kinds of biases. So there's one actually that stuck with me for a very, very long time. I actually remember reading this when I was an undergrad. Just go grab Doggo and hold him up. Dude is 70 pounds. He's a greyhound. I'm not lifting him. That's not happening. Pick him up. 13.6 against each. I'll pray Russian like bots. I thought what would sink me would be technical issues. I thought what would sink me would be, the fact that it's all the wires in the room that I've tried meticulously to hide off of screen. No, what's sinking me is my dog, is the dude. Dude is sabotaging this without even realizing it. What it is jealousy. He's jealous of Rosalina. He's trying desperately to sabotage me. So, I will bring Dude onto stream Wednesday. Pinky promise, okay? Pinky promise, I'll bring Dude into stream on Wednesday. So let's talk about the biases. So, about to be 2016 Facebook in here. Cato, I thought you were an athlete. All right. Okay, first off, ouch. Second off, runner. Spaghetti arms. Do you think I got anything up in here that's going to be able to lift just 70 pounds? Nah. I know what I am. I own what I am. Okay. I've lost control of the chat thanks to the animals. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for like the 20 of you who decided to watch this video later. If it's any consolation, like, at least this is basically how class normally goes, right? So I said in the email that I wanted a sense of normalcy. Can you really get more normal than this? God bless, a lesson all streamers have learned one way or another. Yeah, you lose control of the chat very, 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 very quickly. My wife just messaged me on Facebook saying, I can send him upstairs at the end of class. Okay, you know what? My wife is going to send him upstairs at the end of class now. So, congratulations. Y'all have hijacked the chat. You are getting you've gotten what you want. For some reason, I have metaphorically negotiated with terrorists, and you guys are going to get the dog. Congratulations. All right. Class has to end first. Class has to finish up. So let's talk about it, okay? Let's talk about the consequences of political identity. And so bias is obviously the big one. The book talks about different forms of social bias, including that people are like legitimately, they legitimately don't want their kids, their sons, their daughters marrying people of another political party. And that already in and of itself is wild, and this is actually something I remember I had personal experience with. I remember when I was in high school before I started dating my wife, I had a girlfriend, and I mentioned to my father that she was a Democrat, and my father was like, but he was obviously joking. But here's the thing, not everyone is joking. Woo, yay, yes, you guys won, congratulations. That's an actual thing. People will actually get upset over people marrying into a separate political party. So that's actually a thing. But here was something that I absolutely found was wild when I was first researching this topic back in undergrad, and that is that in some regards, lecture is keeping Rose asleep. Please, I beg, continue class. Oh no, that's mission accomplished, Bush Jr. Okay, so apparently my lectures are making my daughter go to sleep. So my wife just texted me saying, please continue the class. This is actually working to keep Rosalina asleep. Which is great because when I'm holding her lately, she just wails inconsolably. So I guess my lectures are I'm just going to pretend that really what the thing is that it's my voice that's soothing her and not, the quality of the information. Motivated reasoning here. Okay, so they actually found that in some regards, the bias that is associated with political partisanship for certain people who especially hold very, very salient, very strong political attitudes, and who very strongly hold and identify with and have like linked fate with co-partisans, they actually found that animus is more immediate in the mind than race. And to me, I thought that was incredible. I thought that was wild. So what they do, you guys might have heard about this, the implicit bias test, right? The things that people do. It's a kind of test that people use to be able to see how to test implicit bias, to test the degree of implicit bias, things like that. And researchers actually went in doing so, you can actually compare the degree of bias that people have between groups. Lately, didn't she just start existing? Look, man, look. I'm telling you, it has been these 72 hours have been a year. Okay, when you get like 6 to 8 hours of sleep since Thursday, okay, these days have been a year. Uh, lately, yes, because when we were in the hospital, actually, I could hold her and she would actually calm down a lot, and it was wonderful. But as of last night, I've been holding her, and she's unfortunately has been totally inconsolable. But apparently, she still likes my voice, so that's nice. That's cool. So, going back to the bias, they use that you can use this test to actually determine relative levels of bias as well. So you can actually see, are people more biased with regards to one thing versus more biased with regards to another. So people have done this to be able to see that, people are more implicitly attuned towards bias in age versus race, and more implicitly attuned in terms of sex. So it actually, I think it goes like, the in terms of the implicit biases, I think the ranking goes something to the effect of I want to say age. Yeah, so it's age, sex, race, and then so that was how it is for a long time. But for some people, it's still age, sex, now political identification, and race. They actually found that people's out-party animus was more immediate in the mind, more up front and center than race was in terms of that. So in some respects, racial bias for, again, some people, and when I'm talking about racial bias, this is not talking about kind of like more structural considerations, more structural factors. This is talking about more on the interpersonal level and more on the individual level. So, and actually even beneath that, we're talking about more like on the subconscious level of thought. And on that level, for some people, partisanship is actually stronger in terms of racial animus. And this, if you stop and pause for a second, actually kind of could make a little bit of sense. A lot of individuals who would identify as a Republican have zero problems with Ben Carson, right? Like they have in their minds partisanship as a superordinate category in terms of things like that, and it makes it easy because we have all that social sorting and things like that. So if you go in with the with the party brand, if you go in with the name brand there, then it kind of allows people to assume that you stand for certain kinds of values and other things like that. So that happens, right? So you have lots of outgroup biases that kind of tend to occur, and you especially have outgroup biases, which, as we talked about before, politics is often seen as a zero-sum game. So when you have outgroup biases, you also tend to have actual outgroup disdain and outgroup, derision and things like that. So that is a problem in terms of healthy democratic discourse and things like that. But you actually do have partisan animus. Again, as we mentioned when we went over the exam review, though, partisan animus is relative here. So Mason does a really interesting thing in her book in terms of like looking at the difference in warmth between the two groups has gone over time. But again, if you actually break it down and look at in-group, like if you like in-group affinity versus out-group disdain has grown dramatically, but in-group affinity has stayed relatively constant over time. So again, that's really kind of how this is working and this is operating on. So consequences of identities in terms of that is bias. But another consequence of political identity is, again, just perception, like all other identities. You can have identities. Again, we talked about with the spinning ballerina, and going all the way back to that beginning of class. We talked about which crowd size was larger and not. This is because of identification. This is because of partisan identification. This is because identities, it goes beyond just wanting to be a good group member. It goes into actually altering and not just altering, but fundamentally shaping how we see the world. Just like any other kind of identity, right? We will see things through partisan lenses, and you actually are seeing it now with the response to COVID-19. I think something to the effect of 40% of Democrats feel that it's a serious issue, compared to 20% of Republicans. And this is actually rather interesting because a lot of research shows that if anybody is naturally inclined towards viral threats, it's actually Republicans. Republicans tend to have that, but you're having media effects, and we'll talk about media effects in a couple of weeks. But you actually have media effects that are encouraging this sort of difference. But I was in the grocery store yesterday, and one woman at the very front of the line was a Democrat, and she was, freaking out about how the store was empty, about how still the toilet paper, was all gone. And she saw this as a sign of something to be fearful, something to be like, it's a signal that something has gone awry. Whereas then the next woman came up right behind her, an elderly woman, started saying, "Oh, this is all just stupid. This is all just silly." She saw the same missing stuff in the store, not as and interpreted this not as a cause of concern, but as something to be laughed at, something to see as, fundamentally different. Not fundamentally different, but fundamentally off, something funny. Or not funny, ha ha, or he he, but funny in the sense of like, isn't it just how weird that people are acting about this, right? So they take the same visual stimuli, the same information, and it gets interpreted through these partisan lenses, through these identities. And it's, again, very easy to be able to do this because of the social sorting that has happened into this. When you have multiple identities layered into and sorted into partisan categories, it becomes far easier for partisanship to be, this proxy identity for a conglomerate, and can ultimately shape a lot, right? It can shape a lot about people's perceptions. So, favorite slide about this, are bad. And by are bad, I mean political scientists. Is partisanship the way it is kind of are bad? And this is one of my favorite stories about the profession, right? So back in, a few decades ago, you had the Democratic Party, especially having both the Dixiecrats in the South, as well as the Northern Democrats, as well as Republicans trying to compete in these weird geographic formations that, existed in the United States at the time. Still exists. You can still see the cleavages today, but, in terms of being more salient in terms of party schisms, nowadays parties are more nationalized, rather than geographically sorted as they were. But, back then, the Democrats and Republicans had far more ambivalent positions. You could have a Republican who was pro and anti. You could have one Republican who's pro-abortion or pro-choice, and one Republican who could be, pro-life. You could have the same among Democrats. You could have, and that sort of thing was really, really common because the parties themselves were fundamentally different, right? You had Strom Thurmond, a man who set the Senate filibuster record for, it was over 24 hours, arguing against civil rights in the same party as the man who ultimately pushed through the Civil Rights Bill, right? That is a wide amount of distribution, right? That is a wide variance that's happening there. And so what's going on with that? So what political scientists were kind of saying is that is this really healthy for democracies? If democracy, right, is predicated on the idea of inter-party competition, right, competition between two parties, it fundamentally presupposes that people can actually pick the party that best aligns with their ideals. But on the national level, though, is that actually the case? Can people actually fundamentally pick the party that suits their ideas? And when you have the National Democratic Party that is both pro and anti-civil rights, when you have the Republican Party, also at the same time being pro and anti-abortion, and both of those parties holding both of those things, could you really say that parties are being responsible, right? So political scientists actually recommended, not to say that anybody actually listens. I mean, no one listens to political scientists. I've taught long enough to know that for a damn fact. But political scientists actually recommended that the parties make these distinctions and become distinct in terms of the positions that they identify, so that people could latch onto them and be able to better identify that is the one that I need to go for. That is the party that will ultimately bring about my benefits, right? The benefits that I want to see in the world, right? So that's what political scientists did that, and I love that story a little bit. We made this thing, and here we are now, decades later, wishing that we could somehow turn back the clock. Not just us, but the whole nation, right? Wishing that we could just go back in time and make it so that polarization and partisanship and partisan identity wasn't as salient. So to me, it's almost like Pandora's box, right? But it's at the same time, it's also kind of like, is what happened really wrong? I mean, on the social end, the outgroup, the disdain, the fact that, it is so vehement that some people can't even stand being neighbors with somebody from the other party, that some people can't even stand having their kids marry somebody from the other political party, right? That obviously isn't exactly great for democratic discourse. Wait, no one listens to whom? I missed it. I wasn't listening. Ha! Ha! Nice. So Damn it, Jeffrey, I got me. Sorry, you got me off track. You can't do this to me, man. I have no sleep. It's too easy. It's like it's not even a fair fight, man. It's just like it's not even a fair thing. Okay. So is his political scientists open Pandora's box? And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing that the parties are distinct. Again, what's not the issue is distinction. The issue is division. And so there are different ways that we could try to get over this division, right? We could try to have different individuals into our groups, right? Have more friends of other political parties, have more friends of other political ideologies, and recognizing recognizing also a superordinate identity, which is the fact that we could be Democrats, we could be Republicans, but ultimately we are Americans, right? So recognizing that superordinate identity is important. Sorry. Oh no! It's nothing to be sorry about. It's not even fair. That's more what I was going towards. Hold on. Now I feel bad. I have to go into the chat and actually say, don't feel sorry. It's just not even a fair fight. All right. So now I felt bad. All right. So, again, it's not so much the issue that there's distinction. Distinction actually can be helpful in terms of helping people actually engage with democracy better, in terms of participate better, in terms of structuring their actions better. But it's not so much that. The issue, again, is the division, is the animus, is the biases and things like that. And that is going to take substantially more work to decouple. So that's what I have for today in terms of this and all this. Future ones are going to take a half hour, I promise. Again, a lot of technical issues, a lot of just trying to get into the swing of presenting a PowerPoint. Like on the one hand, it's actually kind of nice because it was about the same length as lecture, but again, I'm actually trying to focus more on making these shorter than that. So, yeah, this will be shorter, this will be ironed out, and I really appreciate you guys' patience for this. So I have to also just type in, hold on. So you're going to see a delay because I have to go downstairs, but just keep holding because then the dog comes up, okay? But this is what I have for today. I will send out an email link to the stream once the stream goes live. So you might just have like a hold message, a waiting message or something like that, as opposed to like trying to actually schedule it, because when you try to get fancy, things stop working. All right, so I'm going to go get Dude because y'all beat me. I am defeated. Hold on. Dude. Come on. Come on. Up, up. Up, up, up. Come on, boy. Come on. Up, up, up. Up, up, up. No. No. Up, up, up. Up, up, up. Alright, up, 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 come on. This way. Hey, dude. No, you're not in your crate. Come on. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Okay. Okay. So come here. Let's move the light a second so you can. Come here, dude. Come here. Come here, dude. Come here. See what you guys have. Doggo time. Yeah. Come here, dude. Come here. You can do it. You can do it. Okay. Actually, let's try this. Let's try this. The things I do for this class. Dude. Right. Doggo. We have Doggo Cam now. So, yeah. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come on. Come on. Why don't you stand up a little bit? There you go. See? Maybe I can No, he's laying down. He's a greyhound. They're very very lazy. Maybe I can move the monitor. Maybe move the camera. There we go. Yep. That's probably as good of a view on Doggo, well, that you guys are going to be able to get. So, yeah. There we go. You can see that you guys got Doggo in the chat. All right. We want full screen. Oh. No, which one? Which one's the full screen button? That's the full screen button. Yes, this is the content I'm here for, goodest boy. There you guys go. What a beautiful dog. He's good and large, boy. Dog. Yeah. There you guys go. Dog. Yeah, dude, you don't even know. You don't even know, man. You are literally... You are the reason that people came to this chat, or not the people that stayed on this chat. You are the reason that everyone decided to stay and listen to me ramble through a lecture on identity. Get rid of the PowerPoint slides. I did. Just give it a second. There we go. There you go. All right. So that's the end of the stream. I'm gonna end the stream on. Oh, baby. That's yeah. Just reading the off the comments. Yeah, so we're going to end the stream there. We're gonna end it on a good note, and that good note is the goodest of notes, the goodest of boys. So we're gonna end it on the note that is, dude. Tomorrow we might end it, or not tomorrow, Wednesday we might end it on the cat. So here we go. Oh, get rid of the PowerPoint slides. That was Stephanie. Stephanie, that was my wife. My wife was basically telling me to get off the slides. We love dude. I mean, I do too. He's a good boy. And he wants some love. He's a little jealous of his new little sister. All right. So, anyways, thank you guys for coming in, stopping by. If you haven't already, make sure you go into the link that I put into the chat or at the bottom right here with the attendance. Go there and mark yourself as having been here. To those who are nose pats, I love it. With the stream engine, don't forget to like. Yeah, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. And be sure to click that bell so you guys can... I can't even do it. All right. I'll see you guys. For those of you who haven't just been like, this is totally off the rails. This is totally done. This is why am I even bothering? For those of you who aren't there and